Λοιπόν, you probably know Faria Faraji, the owner of this channel. He's the Canadian piece of shit. It's not that I hate him, I just hope he dies. So he could not be here today, so it is up to me to be here to talk to you about music theory. Because I have nothing better to do with my life than talk to you, wonderful, wonderful people. So today I'm going to talk to you about the concepts of the enharmonic and chromatic modes of ancient Greek music. Now I can already hear you, Aristoxenus, what is enharmonic, what is chromatic, these terms I do not understand. Well, if you would give me 1 second to explain, is it too much to ask? 1 second, just 1 second, is it too much? So, in order to understand the concept of a mode, you have to understand the concept of the octave. The octave is the natural distance between one pitch and the same pitch but to a higher frequency. So in order to illustrate the octave, the best thing to do is to look at the piano. It's one of the best visual tools in order to understand music. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this note. We are going to start our octave from this note. This is going to be our root note. Now, as I move up of the octave, you can hear that the pitch is getting higher, right? We're getting higher and higher pitched. But now I have reached the same note as the one in the beginning. Musically, these are the same note, only at two different frequencies. Now this is not the same note as this one, this is not the same note as this one, this is not the same note as this one, but this is. So the structure at which one note becomes the same note again, but at a higher frequency, repeats itself at a higher frequency, the distance between those two is the octave. So the octave contains within it a multitude of pitches between these two notes. That is the octave. A mode is a specific configuration of notes within the octave. Within ancient Greek music theory, a mode was a specific selection of 7 notes. You select 7 notes in a specific configuration within the octave, and that is going to give you a certain note. So for example, I am going to choose, let's say, these 7 notes. Remember, for those of you who were counting, you probably counted 8 notes. That is because, remember, this is the same note as this one, only one pitch higher, so we don't count it. So all the rest gives you 7 notes. So if I only go with that specific configuration, then we are dealing with a certain mode. If I go with this specific configuration, so now I have chosen another another configuration of 7 notes within the octave, right? Because the octave in total here has 12 notes on a piano. It actually had more, the octave had more than 12 notes in ancient Greek music, but whatever it was a mode was about you selecting a specific configuration of 7 notes within all of the pitches that are available in the octave. And every mode has its own flavor, has its own sound and everything. So this is the ancient Greek Dorian mode, which in modern day speak, you fine wonderful people call the Phrygian mode, because you modern people had to mix it up in the Middle Ages and mix up our names that we carefully came up with, because this is Dorian, this is not Phrygian. Every time I hear one of you malakes say it is Phrygian, I am, I drink tsipouro to dull the pain of having to speak to you people. In ancient Greek music, there were 3 genera, 3 families of modes. You had the diatonic kind of modes, you had the enharmonic kind of modes, and you had the chromatic kind of modes. Now, the diatonic kind of modality is the one you are probably the most familiar with. It is the one that dominates the world to this day. To put it very simply, if it sounds like a typical Western European song, if it does not sound sort of exotic to Western European ear, then it is going to be most probably diatonic. Now, the diatonic modes, we got them from the Mesopotamians. Unfortunately, the Mesopotamians influenced us, and we accepted that influence. I say unfortunately because, I'm not racist, by the way. I'm not racist at all. I'm not saying I hate. There's some good Assyrians, there's some good Mesopotamians, there's some good Babylonians. Of course, some of them. I'm just saying, if my son comes to me one day and he says, Pater, I found the one. She's the perfect girl. I want her to give you grandchildren, but she's from Assyria. I will sell all Adaxi, no problem. I'm just going to take him to the fields, have him watch the golden sunset, pull out my Glock 45. I can hear you, some of you saying, Aristoxenus, where are you going to find a firearm here in Greece? Don't worry, I know how to find them. I have friends from Crete. I'm just saying, man, you want to find a lot of things in Crete, you can. The guns, that, είναι στερεότυπο, το ξέρω, κατέο, Κρήτη. Αλλά, it's kind of true. You want to have a good time, you come to Greece. You want to have a very good time, come to Crete. You want to have a very good time. 4 words for you. Gavdos Island, Sarageniko Beach. I'm just saying, I was there last spring. A lot of naked Germans. They had probably a lot of Italians with they had gone to the Andromeda Galaxy and back. So we inherited the diatonic modes from ancient Mesopotamia. Now, what the diatonic kind of modality is, it's a specific kind of mathematical arrangement of the octave. So if you employ a certain specific kind of mathematical values, this is how the octave will be divided. And this specific division of the octave, based on specific mathematical ratios, will produce that kind of specific sound that we call the diatonic kind of modes. And it seems that we, ancient Greeks, from a Mesopotamian basis, ended up adopting the diatonic modality and building on top of it with 2 more types of modality. I say we ancient Greeks did it because really the historical evidence shows that, we have the earliest evidence for it. Does it mean that we did it? I'm going to say yes, because I'm Greek. And we Greeks believe we invented everything, because we did. The planet, it's Greek. We invented it. Tsipouro, we invented it. Breathing, people weren't breathing before we invented it. Why do you think oxygen is a Greek word? Think about it. Use your brain for once. Now, the enharmonic and chromatic modes are different types of mathematical ratios, and they will produce this specific kind of sound. In order to explain what the chromatic modes sound like, you have to imagine modes that have somewhere in between a Middle Eastern kind of modality and a jazzy bluesy kind of modality. Chromatic modes are going to give you a certain specific kind of modality that sounds somewhere in between Middle Eastern and jazzy bluesy. Some of those chromatic modes sound the exact same as bluesy and jazz modes, whilst some of those other chromatic modes, like the Lydian chromatic and the second tetrachord of the Hypolydian chromatic, I believe, they will produce what we call Hijaz Makam. Makam Hijaz is perceived, even today in Greece, to be something very fundamentally Middle Eastern, as if it was a Turkish or Arabic imposition. It is a direct product of ancient Greek modality which survives to this day. In order to understand chromaticism, chromatic music today especially, so after ancient Greek music theory, let's say for example in Western music, chromaticism is what happens when you intersperse notes that do not belong to a diatonic mode into a diatonic composition. So for example, you have the major scale, which is a classic diatonic kind of progression of notes. if you only use these notes, you are going to be dealing with a diatonic composition. Chromaticism is what happens if you begin interspersing, intruding within this diatonic kind of modality, if you begin intruding in it notes that do not belong. So you can see on the video right now, there are notes that are not highlighted, right? The notes that are not highlighted are the notes that do not belong to the diatonic structure. So what happens if I start using them also? As you can hear, chromatic has a very distinct kind of sound. To us it sounds a bit weird perhaps. Now in the Roman imperial rule, most of the texts in both Greek and Latin would refer to the chromatic kind of modality as sweet sounding. So for them it sounded sweet, but this is effectively what chromaticism is. Chromaticism is one of those things that is very much still alive in modern Greek music. Of course you still have the descendants of the ancient chromatic modes such as the Hijaz and Hijazkar, you know, that they begin like this. Right, so these are chromatic modes of their own. But something that is also very characteristic of modern Greek music is that you will have a diatonic composition in its basis, like the minor, for example. The minor is diatonic. Let's say this variant of the minor, but it's going to be made chromatic. So for example, it goes... See, this note does not belong in the diatonic minor mode, but Greek music will often do something like this. So this sounds very characteristically, this is very characteristic of modern Greek music, and it shows the continuity between ancient Greek music and modern Greek music. You actually see how chromaticism is still something that survives all the way through the Middle Ages. There's many examples of it. So I just want to take a little moment to talk to you about the sponsor of this video. When we are searching on the internet and when we are, on the internet, our data is at risk. Hackers could go after your data, which is why I am proud to announce to you the service that is sponsoring this video, the Delian League. You see, what if the Persian barbarians want to get your credit card information? What if they want to, what are you going to do if they come here? The Delian League is here to help. With the Delian League, we are going to take all of your information, all of your treasury, all of your money, and we're going to bring it to Athens, far away from the Persians. We're going to, put it in the Parthenon, it is going to be defended, and the Persians will not get your money. Of course, you will not have access to your money anymore because we are protecting it, but you cannot get it back. But what's important is the Persians don't get it. Okay, what's important is we Hellenes keep it. And if you want to leave the Delian League, you can't. You can't leave it because if you ever are stupid enough to want to leave the Delian League, it's because you have gone crazy. You're mad. You're mad. So we're not going to let you. If you are normal, you will stay in the Delian League. So we are going to protect you not only from the hackers, not only from the Persians. We are going to protect you from yourself. That is how good the Delian League is. So don't worry about it. Pericles, he told me, Olaïdaxi, everything is fine. If you see statues and monuments being built suddenly in Athens and it seems like the money came out of nowhere, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just shut the fuck up. Λοιπόν, Then we have the enharmonic, which in my humble opinion, Aristoxenus was the noblest of the modes. It was the one that required the most usage with the ears, and it had its heyday in the classical era, but unfortunately starting from the Hellenistic era, it began to die out completely. By my lifetime, people were just letting go of it because they were pieces of shit. Effeminate louts would be vomiting every time they heard it because they were too fucking stupid to like the noblest of the modes. Seriously, if you don't like enharmonic modes, you're an idiot, and I wish you the worst. Enharmonic cannot be represented using a Western piano simply because the Western piano shows or represents the divisions of the octave that are used in Western music theory. Western music theory subdivides the octave into a distance of a whole tone. So for example, the distance between these two is one whole tone, and the distance between these two is a semitone. That is the smallest division of the octave that is found in Western music, the semitone. But in ancient Greek music theory, we would divide the octave into even smaller divisions than the semitone. This is where we dealt with microtones. Microtones are divisions of the octave that are even smaller than that of the semitone. So you would have to imagine effectively another black note in between these two, and that would be the space for a macrotone. It was absolutely the most beautiful in my opinion, the most noble. Unfortunately, it seems to have died out as a main component of music making in ancient Greece, but it survived later on in the Middle Ages and Byzantine saints, still does to this day, and you can find it in some forms in modern Greek music. The Middle Easterners, the barbarians, they use melodies that are completely built out of microtonality. We haven't done that anymore, it seems, since antiquity. I might be wrong, maybe it had a resurgence in the Middle Ages, but as far as I know, my generation was the last one that built entire melodies out of it. But still to this day, in Greece, you hear in Nisiotika how they play the violin, the violin, the lira. They are doing it in a way that sounds microtonal. So we have a primarily diatonic or chromatic kind of melody, but then they kind of bend the pitch in order to make it sound a little bit more microtonal. So that's one of the secrets of Greek music of today, which again goes back to ancient Greek music.
Στην αγκάλια σου μέσα βάλε με, βάλε με. Και στην αγκάλια σου μέσα βάλε με, βάλε με.
Okay, I think this was an interesting overview of enharmonic and chromatic modality in ancient Greece. Hopefully it gives you a little bit more of a spherical picture of ancient Greek music and how it connects to Greek music of today. You can watch the Canadian Beats' other videos for that subject. And I really don't have anything more to say to you. This was Aristoxenus, and I don't like you. I don't like any of you.